Liberty Nation with Tim Donner.
So Boris Johnson, the controversial new Prime Minister of Britain, says he'd rather be dead in a ditch than ask the European Union to delay Brexit. It's been more than 3 years since the people of Britain voted by a decisive margin to leave the European Union, but an intransigent parliament and pro-EU political establishment has made the life of Brexiteers a living hell, with a succession of no votes on every Brexit separation agreement Theresa May and now Boris Johnson have put forward. And with a hard deadline of October 31st, appropriately enough, Halloween, we won't even have Parliament to kick around for a while at least. Joining us to discuss the latest of these seemingly endless twists in the road to Brexit is LibertyNation.com managing editor and international correspondent Mark Angelides from across the big pond known as the Atlantic Ocean. Mark, has the climate catastrophe discussed for 420 straight minutes on CNN this week rendered your islands over there like a new Atlantis, underwater paradise?
Well, there's a lot of descriptions about where Atlantis actually was, and I would say that in Plato's Republic, he was pretty much describing where we are today. It used to be a paradise, but it got hit by our version of Hurricane Dorian.
Yeah, paradise lost, I suppose. So, Boris Johnson, the Trump-like new leader of your country, unlike Theresa May, has made it crystal clear that he will get Britain out of the EU come hell or high water. But now, Parliament has pushed back, and Bojo, as he's called, has purged almost 24 Tory members of Parliament who refused to support his latest Brexit proposal. Explain what the hell happened and whether, as the establishment media has claimed, this represents a stunning defeat for Boris Johnson.
Okay, well, let's start with the second part of the question. Was this a stunning defeat? Well, it was certainly a defeat. There's no denying that. Was it stunning? That really depends on your definition of stunning. Do you mean surprising? Not really. Do you mean, was it something with which to make the British people gasp at the sheer audacity of what the parliamentarians did? Then quite possibly, yes, it was stunning in that respect. But what you've got, the situation, to sum it up, is that with Boris's proroguing of Parliament, which essentially just means shutting down Parliament, ready for the next Queen's speech to begin a new session, which is a regular thing to do. It's very, very normal. With that, the people who are opposed to Brexit seem to think that, quite rightly, that what was going to happen was they couldn't do anything to stop Brexit before the October 31st deadline. So what they've done here is they pushed through a bill that essentially ties the hands of the negotiators or cuts their feet off, depending on which analogy you prefer. But what it means is that the UK can't leave the European Union without a deal. Now, I'm sure you've done one or two deals in your time, Tim. And if the person sitting across the negotiating table from you said straight away, look, I'm not allowed to leave this room until I get a deal, I can't do anything else, I have to take a deal, regardless of what that deal is, then you'd probably be rubbing your hands right now. And that's the situation that we face. The Remain fans in Parliament have tied the government's hands and have now made it so Britain cannot leave without some kind of deal. The proposition that Brexit voters didn't know what they were voting for is false. The reality is that those who wish to remain either do know that their situation within the EU is going to change so drastically that it'll be unrecognizable within 5 years, or they didn't realize how much the EU is going to change over the next 5 or 10 years of its existence.
Now, it seems like as the Democrats head inexorably towards nominating a radical leftist candidate for president, that Trump versus whatever radical the Democrats run really resembles Bojo, Boris Johnson, against Jeremy Corbyn, the far-left leader of the Labour Party in Britain. A real symmetry, it seems, in the polarization of the two sides, an outspoken nationalist on one side, a globalist socialist on the other, both utterly reviled by their opposition. Do you see that same symmetry?
Yeah, very much so. It's two different standpoints going forward. Although, don't be fooled too much into thinking that Boris Johnson is an out-and-out nationalist. He's very much an internationalist.
Then why, Mark, is he so intent on closing the deal on Brexit if he's an internationalist?
Well, I mean, Brexit is an internationalist cause. It's something that often gets overlooked. One of the main selling points of Brexit was that Britain will be able to enter into trade negotiations and trade deals and cooperations with countries all over the world, which they're not allowed to do under the European Union.
Right.
Britain is not allowed to do its own trade deals, organize its own things. So Brexit is very much an internationalist movement, but not a globalist one.
Okay. You have sort of parsed the difference in a way that I think we can understand, even though I got to tell you, for those of us on the other side of the pond, this whole Brexit drama is difficult to comprehend, and we're talking about a country in the grips of a Trump presidency where there's stuff you can't understand that happens every single day. So
it's confusing for all of us.
Thanks for joining us, Mark.
My pleasure.
Mark Angelides, managing editor of LibertyNation.com.